Royal Lodge never looked like a place where endings would happen. From the outside, it stood firm and untouched, a grand Windsor estate that seemed immune to the chaos of modern headlines. To most people, it was simply another royal residence. But to Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew, it was something far more personal. It was the last place where life still felt familiar, predictable, and safe. For more than a decade, this house was their shared world. Divorced on paper but emotionally intertwined, they lived together in a way that confused outsiders yet felt natural to them. It wasn't about romance anymore. It was about stability. And stability had become rare in both their lives. Sarah Ferguson had already endured public humiliation, financial struggles, and years of relentless tabloid judgment. Royal Lodge was where she quietly rebuilt herself. It was where she felt connected again to family, to routine, to a sense of belonging that had slowly slipped away after her divorce from the royal system. For Prince Andrew, the house meant something else entirely. It represented continuity, status. A reminder that despite everything that had happened, he still belonged somewhere within the royal world. The walls of Royal Lodge reassured him that not everything had been taken away. But protection doesn't last forever. Over time, the atmosphere around the house shifted. The visits became fewer. Conversations felt shorter. Support grew quieter. Even familiar spaces began to feel heavy, as though the walls themselves carried the weight of unspoken truths. The idea of leaving didn't arrive with confrontation or drama. It arrived as inevitability. Reviews, financial realities, gentle pressure wrapped in firm decisions. No shouting. Just a clear message that the arrangement could no longer continue. For Andrew, this wasn't just about moving. It felt like confirmation that the institution he was born into had finally closed its doors on him. Titles were already gone, public duties erased, appearances eliminated. Now even the private refuge was slipping away. For Sarah, the loss was quieter but deeper. Royal Lodge was the final chapter of a shared life she wasn't ready to close. Leaving meant accepting that the unusual partnership she had protected for years was ending whether she wanted it to or not. Those close to them described the emotional state as fragile. Not dramatic grief, not anger, just exhaustion. The kind that builds slowly after years of defending yourself while the world refuses to forget. Packing the house wasn't just about belongings. It was about memories, family moments, late-night conversations, years spent standing together against outside judgment. Each box sealed felt like another door closing, and with every room emptied, one truth became unavoidable. Royal Lodge was no longer a sanctuary. It was a chapter ending quietly, firmly, and without appeal. Sarah Ferguson's loyalty to Prince Andrew has always divided opinion. To some, it was admirable devotion. To others, it looked like denial stretched too far. But loyalty lived privately is rarely simple. When most people walked away from Andrew, Sarah stayed. She remained beside him through controversies that permanently reshaped his public image. She absorbed criticism simply by association. She defended him when silence might have protected her better. And in doing so, she tied her future to his past. Royal Lodge became the physical symbol of that choice. Friends encouraged her to step away, to reclaim independence and protect what remained of her reputation. She listened, but she didn't leave. Because leaving would have meant admitting that the shared life they rebuilt after divorce had finally reached its end. And endings are hardest when you've already survived one. Andrew, meanwhile, retreated inward. The loss of public duty created emptiness. A man raised within rigid structure suddenly had none. Days became long. Reflection unavoidable. Regret, spoken or not, hovered in the background. His world narrowed. Once surrounded by ceremony and staff, he relied on a shrinking circle of support. Family relationships reportedly grew strained. Conversations became careful. Silences longer. For someone used to authority, invisibility can feel unbearable. Within the royal family, the stance hardened. Not through cruelty, but through distance. Image mattered. Trust mattered. And Royal Lodge had become a reminder of controversies the monarchy wanted firmly behind it. Sarah felt the shift clearly. Invitations changed, tone shifted, even sympathy carried boundaries. Still, she stayed, until staying was no longer possible. As the move became unavoidable, emotions intensified. Not rage, but fatigue. Years of standing still suddenly demanded movement. Years of defending required letting go. For Sarah, this meant facing a painful realization loyalty doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it only delays loss. Leaving forces her to imagine a future not defined by shared history. Reinvention is no longer optional. For Andrew, the realization is harsher. Loyalty cannot replace accountability, and protection cannot outlast consequence. This departure marks a shift not just for two individuals, but for the monarchy itself. In the past, time softened scandal, silence absorbed outrage, distance diluted memory. But the modern world changed the rules. Public patience is shorter, accountability louder, and association carries weight no matter how quietly it's managed. Royal Lodge symbolized an older strategy. Stay still and wait it out. That strategy no longer works. For King Charles, the boundary is clear. Private compassion may exist, but institutionally, the monarchy must move forward. Protecting the future means closing doors on the past. Andrew's exit from Royal Lodge completes his removal from royal life. No official role, no ceremonial presence, no central residence. What remains is a private existence far removed from the system that once defined him. This isn't dramatic exile. It's something quieter and more permanent, erasure. Sarah's position is more complex. She was never fully restored to royal duties, but she remained close. What replaces it is uncertain, but possibility still exists. She has survived by adapting before. Humor, openness, emotional resilience. These traits may yet shape her next chapter. But reinvention hurts more when it follows loss instead of choice. Public reaction remains divided. Some feel sympathy, others see accountability finally arriving. Both perspectives coexist. What's undeniable is the finality of this moment. Royal Lodge wasn't just a house, it was a statement, and its closure speaks volumes. As the final boxes are sealed and the gates close behind them, the silence feels different. Not comforting, not protective, but exposed. Without the house, the routine, the shared structure, everything becomes clearer. For Andrew, the future is smaller. Less visibility, fewer spaces. A life defined by reflection rather than function. Whether that leads to acceptance or resentment remains unknown. For Sarah, the road ahead is painful, but open. Leaving may finally allow her to step out of a shadow she lived in for decades. But freedom gained through loss never feels like victory at first. The monarchy moves forward, carefully distancing itself from a chapter it cannot rewrite, and the public watches not with shock, but with quiet understanding. This story is no longer about scandal. It's about consequence. About what happens when time runs out on avoidance. Royal Lodge once offered shelter. That shelter is gone, and what remains is truth, and perhaps that is the most unsettling part of this entire moment. There was no dramatic downfall, no single event that closed the door. Just time pressure, and consequences slowly doing what they always do, eroding certainty. Stripping away protection, leaving people to face themselves without the comfort of familiar walls. For years, Royal Lodge softened reality. It delayed reckoning. It allowed the illusion that some things could remain unchanged simply because they always had been. But history doesn't work that way. Neither does public memory. As the chapter closes, what lingers isn't anger, it's reflection. Reflection on how power fades, on how loyalty can become both a shield and a burden, on how silence, when held too long, eventually speaks louder than words ever could. This moment won't be remembered for a house being vacated. It will be remembered for what that house represented, and what its loss confirms. Because when even royal doors close quietly, they still close for a reason.